Welcome to Women of the Bible True Talk Live Bible Study. Get your Bible, pencil, and pad and join in with us in the Bible study already
Hello
in
and
progress.
welcome to Women of the Bible True Talk Live Bible Study, and Happy New Year 2016. This is our first videotaping of the new year, and we're so grateful to God to be coming to you again. I hope that you guys enjoyed your holidays and are blessed. I know you're highly favored of the Lord. What we're going to do at this point of our Bible study is we're going to summarize where we are. Where we left off is we concluded Genesis chapter 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of recap everything that we've learned. So we're going to briefly go through, skim through chapters 1 through 5. And if time permits, we're going to get started in chapter 6 for the new year. Okay? In chapter 1, we know it all deals with the creation. In the beginning, and we talked about things like time. This is dealing with the beginning of time, that God created the heaven and the earth, and there was darkness, and Jesus stepped into chaos and he brought about order. On the sixth day, we see him bringing forth man, and on the seventh day he rested. Now, what I want to do at this point is see if you guys have any notes of any memorable points that was brought out in chapter 1 that has blessed you. And I want those things that readily jump out at you.
Yeah, I think the only thing was we talked about the difference between what we made and created.
Yes.
That was a big blessing to me.
Do you want to give us a recap with that? Okay.
To make something is to cause something to happen or appear.
Mm-hmm.
So to create something is to make something that out of nothing that never was there. So
Okay.
you have to create it out of anything, but you can make a cake, you can take the eggs and the oil and the flour, but when you create something, it comes from, to me it comes from inside. When you create something, when you create it, it's a gift, it's a blessing, and it's something that wasn't already there. When you create a new idea, it has to be God sent. And so this is something that God, no one else could create the world. No one else could create the heaven. You know, God, this is God's masterpiece that he created. This wasn't in man or before man. So, I mean, it was before man, so man didn't think of any of this. God created all of it.
Exactly, which says he's not in control of any of it either.
Man.
The control, we know God gave us dominion, but he doesn't.
Control, right.
Okay. And in chapter 2, we're looking at God starting to give us the genealogies of the heavens and the earth, and how things were created versus the way things were made. And he specifically got into the point of how man was created differently. He kind of stressed that man became a living soul. I know that always resonates with me. You know, we had all the living creatures, but man became a living soul, which made him a being. So that resonates with me. And the fact that, you know, man was alone, meaning that he was all in one, and God put him to sleep and took an aspect of the man out, and those aspects collectively makes up the woman. So that was just beautiful. And then from that, you know, Adam realized that she's of me, she's bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, and he declared what she was, his wife. So I thought, so God had given him his wife. And a point to point out there, I don't know if we did it in the past, is that, you know, a wife should be something that's God-given. We don't just go out and choose and pick after the flesh.
And the man does the choosing.
That's right. The man does the choosing. Yes.
I had a discussion with a friend of mine not too long ago. We were just sitting out having dinner with her husband and my husband as well. And it just came up, somehow chapter 1 came up, and I was just, you know, saying, I think we were talking about, you know, some moms and at home and the babies and just how that goes. And it was, you know, I think I mentioned about the man being here by himself, and he was taking care of everything by himself. You know, he had it under control, and then, you know, we were created because he wasn't good for him to be alone, to help him and to be beside him. But before we came, you know, he had it under control.
Before we were brought forth in manifestation, because, you know, male and female was Adam. So, okay. So, you have anything to add? Okay, and then we get into chapter 3, which is you know, the bad boy steps on scene. We see the serpent deceiving the woman, and we see her second guessing God. doubting God. He putting that inkling of doubt there, and then we see her wanting to know something that she was never created to know. And it's not that God was withholding anything from her. And the thing, yes, he was withholding from her, but all he was withholding from her was the knowledge of people. You know, just like we as parents, we we make our mistakes, so we try to set up an environment with our offspring so that they don't make the same mistakes. We try to protect them from them. It's not that God had made a mistake, but God knows evil. He knows where it is. He knows how it is. You know. So, but the interesting part is that the choice was there because we are free wills. But it's not like it took them by surprise. It was there, and they knew exactly because He told them exactly. So, lack of obedience was a big thing for me to remember in chapter 3, and how far our lack of obedience can take us, and that is not just something designed to hurt you, but it's going after your entire life and the seed that follows after you. So the Holy Spirit kind of inclined to me. That's a reason for us to live holy and to live righteous. It's like God's mechanism of protection. So anyways, that was beautiful. We saw the fall, and we saw the consequences of the fall, which hit everyone heavily, but it changed her desire. Her desire left from God and was toward the man, and it's towards something that she can never be satisfied with, because he will dominate over her. Which it was never created to be that way, in the beginning. So, anybody want to add anything to chapter 3? Okay. And then we looked at chapter 4, and we go into the first family, where Adam and Eve, it has Cain and Abel. And then the thing that really stands out to me when I read this now too is it doesn't necessarily mean Cain and Abel were the only children that were born. They were just the first two sons. And I'm convinced that there were daughters being born, because otherwise how could they procreate, which we see them doing so. And I know that may sound a little weird to people. Say, now wait a minute, did somebody marry their sister and their niece? Well, it didn't matter. God, we'll see God bringing a little more law and order as we go through the chapters in the scriptures. And we see that the disobedience of Cain, and how his disobedience, God warned him that if you continue in the sin that resulted from your disobedience, the sin that was in your heart, you're gonna do something fatal. I'm paraphrasing. And instead of him taking the correction and the instruction and saying, I'll do better next time, he totally ignored God. And he went out there and he did the very thing that God warned him and told him would happen. So as a result, the consequences for Cain was more than he felt that he could bear. And we know that God is a just God. And so when God spared Cain from being the desire for others to want to kill him, that was the mercy of God. Because Cain dished out. We can put out sometimes what we can't take. And this is what he's saying to God. And then he's still out of order in his attitude as far as I'm concerned, because he's telling God he's not fair. But anyway, we see the destruction of that, and we see the separation between Cain and God via the symbolism of him being separated from his family. But really, what really gets me is that he don't have this connection in this relationship with God. He's sent away with a skill that he can no longer work at the same way. He was a cultivator of the ground, and the curse was that the ground was going to not yield up his strength to him. So he had to work really hard for what he was going to get. And we know that there was iron and things of that sort in the ground. So obviously, based on speculations of where the Garden of Eden was, obviously these guys figured out how to irrigate, because they were in desert land. And not only did they figure out how to irrigate, but they also took the resources that they came to know, and they became implementers of instruments, weapons of warfare, tools, things of that sort. And we see at the end of Cain's, the knowledge that God has given us, at the end of Cain's lineage, which God allows us to see, they're not just utilizing these things, but they're masters of it, and they're teaching other people. These guys became extremely advanced and wealthy, even without being children of God. So, you know, the mercy
That's
of
the
God.
grace and the mercy of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Even
know,
when we're not deserving.
yeah, that
It's
resonates
still-
with me.
yeah.
It's no excuse for giving up because you don't have something you feel that you need,
Mhm.
you know, because there's always more than one way, we say, to skin a cat.
Right.
You know, you just got to go out there and scratch. And so, you know, I think that Cain and his descendants are an excellent example of the fact that there's something in your hand. God has given
Give
something.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's going to come easy,
Right.
but it's out there,
Right.
you know. And then that took us up. Did anybody have anything to add?
I was just thinking he still made provision, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, again, it's the mercy of God.
Mm-hmm.
Still makes provision, even though
Sometimes
we're just out there, but
Yeah.
Provisions are all around
all
us.
around us. Yeah.
All around us. And if we just open our thinking, I was about to say open our minds and our hearts to God, but these guys weren't doing that.
Mm-mm.
They weren't opening their
Right.
minds and hearts to God. They were just working hard. You know, and becoming crafty and creative, which, you know, when Adam and Eve fell, they became very crafty in the wrong way.
Right.
You know,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
But just this thing of what we can do with the wisdom and the knowledge of God on top of all of His resources.
Right.
You know, we're awesome. We just need to know that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes we as
Paul's prayer. He's like, I pray that the eyes of your understanding be enlightened. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of chapter 4, it's almost as if Cain's genealogy was being injected in there so that we can see that evil people
Oh, exists.
were in the midst of all of these
Yeah.
things. And then all of a sudden at the end of chapter 5, when God finished telling us all about Cain and his descendants and everything, it says that, you know, and Adam knew his wife again.
Right.
You know, and they had this son, and his name was Seth. And Seth had a son. His name was Enos. And that was when men began to call upon the name of the Lord, you know. So that alone tells us that they weren't calling upon the name of the Lord, but yet they're making all this progress. And I think one of the descendants, the first descendant, I think, of Cain was Enos. And I read was born to him. One of these guys was born. Enoch, I think, Enoch was the one that built a city.
Right.
Okay.
Enoch built a city and named it after his son.
Right.
That blew me away.
Yeah.
You know. But anyways, then we see Seth being born, and men begin to call upon the name of the Lord. And then we went into chapter 5, where it's talking about the genealogies of that righteous generation. You know, and it starts talking about Adam and how he begat Seth, and you know, with the begats just goes on, and we come up to Noah. It stops at Noah in that genealogy because we know that destruction is coming.
Right.
And we know that destruction is coming, and God, in my opinion, based on scriptures, gave us an inkling of that in verse 28 and said, Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands.
Yeah.
Because the earth was not partial to Cain's descendants. It was cursed because of man's sin. So they all have been working hard. You know, the work of our hands because of the ground which the Lord has cursed. So they knew something was special about Noah from his birth. Isn't that interesting? But you know, you could say, well, how did they know that? Well, these were men of God. They're calling upon the name of the Lord. They have that special something, you know. And then it goes on from there, and it tells us that, you know, Noah himself has 3 sons. And that's where we ended. And I want to stress at the end, not only did he have 3 sons, but he was 500 years old.
Right.
When he had these sons. Who wants to champion reading the first 4 verses of chapter 6?
And it came to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. And they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years.
Let's stop right there for a second. I know I said 4, but before I jump in there, because you know I'm long-winded, what do you guys receive from these first 3 verses?
A lot is changing.
Yeah. I'm about to say they started to talk about daughters, women being born now, more so.
And the lifespan is short.
Yeah.
They're actually beginning to acknowledge the daughters now. You know, because before they saying sons and daughters were born.
Right.
And I guess they're not saying much more,
Yeah.
but men are multiplying, and this is mankind.
Right.
This is not male men. This
Right.
this man here, and it came to pass when men, they talk about mankind,
Right.
began to multiply, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God. Now, there's a lot of controversy around this. And I tend to lead one way, honestly, and then I'll read something else, and I tend to lead another. I don't think any scholar has pinpointed.
No.
I have a stronger belief, in a sense, on who I believe these sons of God are. We are the children of God. You know, we're the sons of God that trust in His name, believe in His name, live separate and holy, sanctified lives through Jesus Christ. There's a lot of controversy on who are these sons. And the reason why these controversy is there is because of what we're going to read a little further down. But because of the sake of this Bible study, I didn't want to get on there and just debate. And this is not a heaven or hell issue. This is not a saved or unsaved issue. This Bible study is to focus on women. You know, so if you just look at it, let's say whichever one they were, they saw the daughters. They saw us. Okay? And we know that these daughters weren't angels. These were daughters of men, they say. That they were fair. The word fair, I mean, they were beautiful. I mean, men attracted to what they see. I mean, we all are, but I mean, it's very profound with men.
Yes.
They're attracted to what they see. And they saw these beautiful daughters, and they took. Now we see the consequences of the woman being more and more pronounced. They didn't ask for their hand in matrimony. And they took them, not a wife, wives of all which they chose. Now we see Lamech being the first bigamist, but now it's off the chain. They just taken wives of all they chose. We don't even know if these women wanted to be with them, but we see them dominating. We see them ruling over them.
Chose them, you know.
Yeah. And then verse 3, the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. Now, that word strive means to contend. And if I put it in my terms, you go look it up in the dictionary. What God said, I'm not going to always put up with man. Okay? But God's not going to always compete. Because He is Lord. He is Lord. That's what that word strive means. He said, for that He also is flesh. So we know that the sin is in our flesh. And God's striving with us is just His mercy. But He don't have to put up with us, and He's not going to do it. Always. And then we see a shortening of man's lifespan. Yet his days shall be 120 years, and we went like Methuselah and all of them, 900, 800. You know, and what we're seeing is God striving with man coming more and more to a close. Okay? Verse 4.
There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Okay.
So what's going on with you guys with this?
I don't know if you want to mention that, but that's kind of where the controversy begins with the giants.
The sons of God, and then when you add these giants to it, you know, it really gets into something. Did you do any research on that?
No, I didn't, because I didn't want to be.
Okay, Sophia, what you got?
I did. The Nephilims, the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, and that the giants came from them because it was I guess the diluted DNA. What is it? The diluted.
It would be
bloodline.
But that's if you believe that those were angels.
And then it's another point to say, well, not saying that they bear the giants. It just says that the giants were in the earth, and they, you know, these became mighty men of renown, which may have been Cain's descendants, who were strong and who were mighty and who were powerful. And so the children that they bear were of that bloodline. They were strong. They were mighty.
Yes.
As well. So
because they were the descendants. Now, I actually referenced the Hebrew with giants. And if you guys out there in Cyberland want to do this, and you go to your Strong's Concordance, it's number 5303. And all it said was they were men of renown and great authority. of power, mighty men, and also bullies. So we have these giants in the earth, and also it says there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that.
Right.
Because we're getting ready to encroach upon the flood. But then after the flood, and we go several generations through, we're going to see Goliath.
Right. And he's
And he's a giant. So so it's telling us here, they weren't just in these days, but they were also after that.
Right.
When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which is exactly what giants, if you reference the Hebrew. It doesn't, the Hebrew don't talk anything about angels or anything like that. It's just telling you they were men of renown, they were great, they, you know. And we saw that a couple of chapters back, the king's descendants were great. Mighty men. And men who don't believe in God tend to be bullies and things of that sort. But they were mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Okay? We still don't have any clear-cut decision that we can make on who these men were. But Cain's descendants are the angels, because the angels are not little babies in diapers. These are some pretty big guys from what my study, and I guess this is not about angels, so I won't go into it. But these are some pretty big, powerful creatures. Okay? I can see, in any case, the bigness in as far as stature and height, or the bigness from the standpoint of in life. I think there was a saying out there, doing it big, I'm doing it big. That's what people who were, you know, doing it large or whatever, rolling in the money and had everything, you know. So the pendulum can swing anyway. So, but the point of the matter is this created an offspring of out of control wickedness, and you know, it was bad. Okay? You know, when we just base things on what we see with our physical eye and not with our spiritual eye, where do we think the end result of our thinking is going to take us? You can't think out. If God is in the box, don't think outside of the box. Because what's outside is probably not what's good for you. And I know that there are a lot of attractive people out there. And nobody's shone in beauty. One of the greatest stories that I love, and we're going to eventually, is Esther. You know, I love talking about Esther. Jacob was just what we call today fine.
Solomon.
You know, so Solomon. So you know, David. You know, God created beauty for purpose, not for lust. We can like it. I like beautiful things, beautiful people. I like them beautiful externally and internal. And I don't know a person living. Yes, I don't know a person living who don't want to have a beautiful facade, exterior facade. I do everything I can to look as good as I can for as long as I can, you know. But just focusing on that alone can cause us to catch a tiger by the tail. And we weren't meant to play with the tails of tigers. So we have to be very careful and let the Spirit of the Lord enter into our reasoning and our thinking. Okay, Sophia, continue with verse 5.
And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
Okay, let's look at this. The wickedness of mankind, so that's what that's referencing, was great in the earth. So this male and female, they're just wicked. And that every imagination continually of the thoughts of his heart was on. But can you imagine how tormented they must have been? I mean, think about, I've seen people at the altar in churches begging God for deliverance from a tormenting, besetting sin. These people were tormented by sin all the time. I think in one of our earlier videotapes we talked about when Eve took, because she saw that the fruit was good, it was beautiful to the eye. People fall into bondage by what they see. And you got out of that people hooked on pornography and all that. And I've seen men cry about deliverance. Wake up in the middle of the night, can't sleep. Gotta look at it.
That's that torture.
They're tormented. And God loves us. He does not want us to suffer like this.
Right.
And this is what's happening.
Right.
Every thought was evil all the time. God's looking at his beautiful creation, tormented. Sonia, verse 6.
And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart.
My God, there you have it. The Bible says God will never have to say he's sorry. Repenting, see, to say you're sorry, this is he's grieved. That's a whole nother level.
Right.
God is grieved that he made man on the earth. The earth has been cursed. Now man is there and he's got sin lurking in his flesh. And God is striving with him. And is grieving God.
Right.
Can you imagine, mothers, the first example come to my mind, mothers raise their children and have to watch them become victims of drugs. And they want to help them.
Right.
This is not, I'm sorry I ever birthed you. That's not the kind of grief that we're talking about right here. This is, I'm so sorry for what you're having to go through.
Right.
I can't stand to even look at it.
Right.
I don't want to see, I can't stand to see you suffer. This is the kind of grief God is having.
Right.
Okay? He repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart, not at his head,
Right.
at his heart.
This concludes this week's Bible study. I pray that something was shared to motivate you to become the woman of God that he created you to be.
Strong, protective, loving, rejected, faithful, prosecuted, essence of beauty, powerful, prophetess, working without rest, women of the Bible. Women of the Bible. Deborah was the only female judge of Israel. She prophesied with Barak of a woman named Jael. The Lord has spoke to you, so here I'll say again. Travel to Kadesh, your sword will meet all of Sisera's men. Barak said, Deborah, I won't go unless you go too. She said, I'll go and know this journey has no honor for you. The Lord would sell Sisera into a woman's hand. Jael fulfilled Deborah's prediction as the